Now, a report on big cat farming in South Africa has painted a worrying picture. The Four Paws Report, titled The Vicous Cycle, reviewed what it's calling the exploitation of South Africa's big cats, as well as the people who work in the booming industry. It found that breeding and trading are taking place with very little regulation and monitoring. Caged lion hunting and exporting are legal in South Africa, but it's now spilled over into tigers. In the last decade or so, South Africa has exported over 300 tigers to various Asian countries. Let's unpack the report now with Sarah Locke Miles, Head of Programs at Four Paws South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. So there are a lot of regulations around dealing in big cats. But it seems there's also so much that we don't know. What did your report aim to find out, and what did you find out?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. So the report was actually called "The Year of the Tiger," and "Break the Vicious Cycle" is the name for our campaign. And this report really looked at what really found that the real scale, huge scale of breeding and trade of big cats from South Africa. So you're right, as you said, tigers, lions, as you know, that's well documented to be commercially traded from South Africa. Also, leopards are commercially traded. That's through things like trophies. And other species, the jaguar as well. We found that jaguar are also being breeded in South Africa. So, you know, 4 out of the 5 big cat species being breeded and commercially traded from South Africa. That was you know, one of the key findings. And then within that, yeah, you're right, the lack of regulation, lack of effective regulations, we would say, because there are regulations in place. So CITES is the main one that really jumps to mind. And CITES is the Convention on the International Trade of Endangered Species of Flora and Fauna. And that's an international agreement that South Africa is a party to. And it has very, very strict regulations, particularly regarding the tiger, because it's an Appendix 1 listed species, meaning it's of the highest category of endangered, basically. And we found that these rules are being disregarded. And so that was really something, yeah, that was one of the main findings of the report. And this footage here is obviously, you can see the kind of conditions that these animals are in, basically. So that was also something, and this has been quite well documented. We released footage back in November that showed this. So yeah, that was kind of some of the key things that we pulled from the report.
So let me just understand this. With tigers, CITES says that you cannot breed tigers and sell them on. You cannot sell their parts. Just explain to me what CITES says and what South African laws say about tigers, if anything.
Yeah, so one of the main CITES decisions is CITES decision in 1469, and that basically says that tigers cannot be commercially traded. So that's traded for, you know, for buying. They cannot be intensively bred for commercial purposes, basically. So the breeding of tigers can't harm their wild populations. Basically, it has to be done for sort of conservation purposes, conservation benefit. And the thing is that while we allow their trade, so their trade in parts to Asian countries where they might be used in traditional medicines, that, you know, their bones and blood are used in traditional medicines or as luxury products, while we allow that, that does actually harm wild populations, because it then puts a price on their head as well. And in South Africa, you know, all of the different national departments have slightly different rules as to the activities of activities related, such as hunting tigers. And so that was something that we really tried to establish, was what actually happens in each of the different provinces. And so that's why we undertook PIRE requests, basically. So we did those to all of the national, all of the provincial departments and the national departments as well, to try and really figure out, the scale in each of the provinces of the breeding, but also the kind of, you know, the different rules and regulations with each of them.
So it really sounds like the regulations are almost impossible to understand in South Africa, and they vary from province to province. You've also pointed to the fact that because of this lack of regulation, and it seems to me also a lack of monitoring how these big cats are looked after, that they're often kept in really bad conditions. So it sounds like absolutely monitoring and making sure that the paperwork is in place and that people are reputable when they engage in these activities is absolutely paramount. But you are actually calling for a ban on the sale of these species. Just tell us why.
Yeah, so we're calling for a ban of the commercial trade of all big cats from South Africa. And the reason that we're calling on that, and for all big cat species this is because once you remove the skins, it's actually really, really difficult to differentiate between species. So while we allow it, you know, the legal trade of one, for example, of lions, it sort of acts as a conduit for the illegal trade, such as tigers, which would be illegal for tigers. So that's kind of like one of the key things that we're calling for is ending that, because if we allow bits of the trade, we allow basically the demand to continue and to encourage and perpetuate the demand, and we allow these illegal conduits and loopholes basically to develop. And that's, you know, that's there are so few of these animals left in the wild now. We really don't have the time basically to continue to allow that. So that's kind of why we've gone for this really hard line.
You know, I hear that it sounds a little bit like what happened with elephants and elephant tusks, but at the same time, we also know that in South Africa, the revenue from allowing a trophy hunter to come and kill a tiger, as unsavoury as many of us may feel it is, brings in huge revenue, not only for those private game farms, but also for those private game farms to actually conserve and look after the animals. And if they don't do it, one asks who is going to. So how do you deal with the reality, the sad reality, that the huge amount of money is made from allowing this type of activity, which in turn helps conservation?
Well, I would say that there's actually far more revenue to be gained by creating, you know, a sustainable environment where these animals can continue to exist, and we get, you know, you get revenue. South Africa, some of South Africa's main tourist revenue will come from people going on safaris, ethical safaris, where they don't kill the animals. That's the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people don't want to trophy hunt. We're talking about quite a small group here that do want to, and really the wider group are more than happy just to see animals and watch them flourish in their natural habitat. And I think that that's something that really money can't buy, and actually that does bring in the revenue. And so I sort of would argue that, you know, to say that this would bring in more money than an ethical wildlife, because I just don't think that's true, an ethical wildlife encounter, because that's just, I don't believe that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Very interesting. Sarah Locke, Head of Programs at Four Paws South Africa.